everybody. Welcome to the Daily Self-Publishing Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Sutton, and I'm back for part 2 with Vince Warnock. You might remember he was the Chief Marketing Officer of Cigna Life Insurance. He's speaker, author, mentor, gives of his time freely to help people if you need it. Author of Chasing the Insights. Vince, welcome back. Thanks for coming back for a second time.
Oh, Jeremy, you wouldn't keep me away. Trust me, this is too much fun, man.
Oh, man. Vince, I think I'm going to come to Australia and New Zealand. I think you're about the 5th person on that side of the world that I've interviewed. And I think I really should have been born in that part of the world because I'm starting to see I really enjoy talking to you guys.
I would skip Australia, just come straight to New Zealand. That way you don't have to level up to New Zealand. You just go straight to the top, man.
I want to see a red stag. Y'all have those in New Zealand, right? Is that where they are? No, I was wrong. Oh man, you see that? That's what happens when you start talking about stuff you don't know.
Oh, actually, we may do that, but I certainly haven't seen one before.
That's awesome. Oh man. So something totally off topic, has nothing to do with the podcast or writing a book. So I'm a physio, I'm a physical therapist, and the guy that started our school his name's Stanley Paris, and he's from New Zealand. And I said cervical spine one day, and he said it's cervical. I've been speaking English longer than you. And I said, yes, sir, whatever. But anyway, that doesn't have anything to do with our podcast.
Don't worry, man. Anytime anyone starts talking about niching down, it irritates me. The word is niche, people. The word is niche. It's niching down. I don't care if you need to rhyme it with another word. It's French. You pronounce it in the French.
All right, fine. It's like salmon. It's salmon, people. Come on. Vince,
I agree with that one. Yeah.
Chasing the Insights. Tell us about your book.
Oh, man. Okay. So this is my first book. I'm actually writing a couple other books at the moment and a couple of children's books because I get bored easy. But with the first book, one of the goals was to basically take my methodology and put it down on paper. And so this is something that I have instigated in just about every organization I've been in. I used it in my own companies. In fact, that's where I came up with the concept, was when I launched a company called Common Ledger. We had 6 months of being in that business without any income. And I knew that was part of the strategy going in. We knew that we had to raise a seed round. So we knew we had to raise $1 million to be able to keep the company going. But we knew for 6 months there would be no income. So I thought, we have no budget, right? We are going to try and build something. We are going to try and market this to people. We are trying to get people on board, and our target audience was accounting firms. So we're trying to get them on board with our software with no budget whatsoever. From the corporate world, that's a big challenge because you used to just throwing millions of dollars at things. So we had to get super efficient about what we did. So I thought, right, I need a way to test everything that we do to make sure we're getting the return on investment. Because we would use our money very sparingly or not at all. So I came up with an experimentation framework, a way to kind of test things in market, to test the kind of ROI we got. And as soon as I implemented that, I realized it comes with a whole pile of challenges. So the first part of my book, that's the methodology. It's called the Chaser Method. It's a 6-step process to implementing experiments in marketing. The next part of the book, though, was based on the challenge that we discovered, which is it's easy enough to have a framework, but you've got to have the right headspace to be able to deliver on it. And by that, I mean, experimentation comes riddled with our own insecurities. So often we talk ourselves out of them because we've got other pressures, or in most cases, we actually look at the results and they didn't quite go the way that we wanted them to. So all of our cognitive biases kind of kick in, and we start looking for ways to prove that experiment was a success, despite the fact there was no way it was a success. So I realized I need to change the mindset of anyone if they're going to successfully do this. So the second part of the book, and it's in 3 parts. The second part is the mindset stuff. So it's talking about cultivating curiosity, which is probably one of the most important things I think every human has to do. It's about removing cognitive bias, being able to keep open-minded, building fortitude and resilience in your life when you're doing these kind of things as well. And then the third part was because any book I read, I found it. One of my favorite books of all time is called Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath. It's a marketing book that any marketer worth their salt has read. Now, the problem with that is I read the book. I was so genuinely inspired. I'm like, this is going to change the way I create content. This is going to be fantastic. And then about a month after I'd read it, I was back to my old habits. And I thought,
sure,
I needed a practical way to use the book. So one of the things I thought is, if I'm writing a book, yes, I'm going to put the framework. Yes, I'm going to put the mindset. But the third part of it is going to be practical experiments that anyone reading the book can go, you know what? I'm going to do that right now. So I had experiments from myself, and I got 3 other top digital marketers from around the world who contributed their time, and they gave me their experiments, and so that people could just run with those. So that's the whole principle and kind of context of the book.
Yeah, I love that, man. I love books that are broken up into two or three sections. One of my
Yeah.
favorite books is Ryan Levesque Ask,
Yeah.
and he tells his
It's on my
first.
bookcase right behind me.
Yeah, I love it. It's mine's somewhere in my house. I have books literally piled up everywhere because I help people write books, and my wife's like, "You got to stop buying so many books." I'm like, "No, I don't." But anyway, he talks about in the first 60 pages is his story,
Yep.
and then the rest of the book is his method. And he's like, look, if you don't want to hear my story, skip to page 61. But I like that because I want to know your history and your story, but
Yeah.
also want to know the practical of how to do this. Because
See, there's a very smart reason he's done that as well, and that is because when you know the story, you understand the context of the method. And I see this too many times. This is why I teach people to make sure that they put their story into what they're teaching, because when you're standing on stage at a conference and you go up there and go, here's 5 things that you need to do right now, or a 5-step program, step 1, step 2, step 3, you get to step 3 before people have actually started to listen to you, because they're still going through their head, is this good value? Is this good content? I'm not sure yet. Who is this person? I don't really understand the context of this. But when you hear their story, that's when you go, okay, this person knows what they're talking about. I should pay attention now. So you take on board all of the content.
yes, I love that. It's because you don't know if you like this guy. You don't know if you're going to trust him. I mean, it's like, you don't know. Yeah. I mean, it's funny, I went to a conference and the guy was like, hey, everybody had their phones out. You got your phone over here, and I hate that I'm in a room and I've got my phone like it's face down. I'm not looking at it, but it's here. But everybody has their phone in their eyes. He's like, look, you paid $1,000 or whatever it was to be here. Yeah. Put your freaking phone down and listen. And I was like, oh man, it's uncomfortable, but I'm like, okay, this guy's gonna tell the truth. Let's listen to see what he has to say. And he's a great guy. I've had many conversations with him, but you have to tell your story. You have to be practical. I really I'm a visual learner. And so I like to see videos, but I love it when people give a PDF or something with it, because I want to see it in black and white. I want to draw on it. I want to circle things. So
yeah, I'm with you. I'm kinesthetic learner, man. I just need physical things to do. I remember actually in one of my old workplaces, one of my bosses, this is when I was early in business, one of my old bosses just ripped into me. We were doing this training session, and we had this like international trainer over teaching us all this stuff. And she saw that I was doodling. So I'm just drawing in my book. I'm drawing away while this person's talking. And she just like admonished me in front of everybody and just said, what do you think you're doing? That's disrespectful to the teacher. The teacher was actually like, hang on a minute. I can guarantee you Vince is going to recall more than anybody else in this room. And she was damn right. She tested me and bam, I knew everything she was talking about. And the reason for that was I was using that to process my thoughts and to stay paying attention, especially when you're basically ADHD like me. So it was the only way I could actually focus. So very, very important to cater for different styles, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I do that in meetings. I may have something in my hand or I'm looking at something, but then it's funny. Somebody told me the other day, he's like, my favorite part of a meeting is when you look like you're not paying attention and then you ask a question or say something. And I'm like, maybe I need to stop looking like that. I mean, look like I'm a little bit more respectful. I don't know. I love that. I love the practical part of it. So you wrote your book. You've had all this success before, and you've done all this business. You've got all this experience. I mean, did you want to just, give back some stuff? I know we talked about being seen as an expert and things, but there has to be a little bit of servant leadership involved in writing a book as well.
100%, man. I'm a firm believer in this. I actually often argue with my peers on this one, because there's in marketing, I call it dodgy marketing. They don't agree with me on that one because they don't like being called dodgy, but they are. But there's this whole aspect of marketing, which is about conversion focus. It's about get people in your funnel, charge them as early as possible, continue to charge them more, upsell, bump offers, keep going until you've basically wringed every little ounce of value out of these people. And I'm like, no. When you do that, you've done something very basic. You've gone, okay, here is an individual that is now transacting with me. So I am selling them something. They have transacted with me. And if it's a good experience, they may come back again. If it's a bad experience, they won't. If it's a kind of average experience, they probably won't either. Whereas what I believe is, as marketers, as entrepreneurs and things, give away as much as possible. Like, give value to people, impact people, actually want the best for people, because the result of that is not just that they will buy whatever it is that you're selling. Not only will they buy what you're offering, but also they become not transactions, they become fans. They become people who go, you know what, this person sacrificed for me. They impacted me. They helped me when I had nothing. I've taken on board, like, seriously, there's about 3 or 4 clients I've got. I probably shouldn't admit this on a podcast, actually, because I get people reaching out. But I've got about 3 or 4 clients that couldn't afford to have me coach them, right? But I could see they were so close. I could see that there was just some minor things they needed to change, and then they were going to make a breakthrough. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to charge them nothing, but I said, I'm going to charge you absolutely minimal. And there's a reason for that, because I wanted them to value what I'm doing. But I'm going to charge you absolutely minimal for my services to help you. But what we're going to do is I'm going to work with you to make sure you sign 3 to 4 new clients. And once you sign those 3 to 4 new clients, you are then going to be able to afford my services properly. And guess what? It paid out in every single case. Like, it was just been the best decision ever. So giving away stuff for free and giving back to the community not only is something really rewarding and something really fulfilling, it's also a great way to get people to buy into what you're doing and to buy from you as well.
Yeah, I love that. There's so many dodgy marketers out there these days.
Oh my goodness, man. Don't get me started. I seriously, at some point, I'm going to snap and I'm just going to name and shame a lot of them, because unfortunately, there are a lot of my peers who I've shared stages with around the world. And I'm like, yeah. I remember I actually asked one of them to speak at one of my early summits. And I reached out to him just because I did this. I kind of went, okay, I want to do an online summit. I want to help help entrepreneurs with marketing. So I created the Ultimate Marketing Strategy Summit. So first thing I immediately went to in my head was the wrong thing. I went, okay, I need my big name keynotes. I need my, high profile entrepreneurs and high profile marketers. So I reached out through my network, and a few of them said yes. And I'm like, great, this is awesome. And one of these people who's very high profile, I got him in, and I jumped on a call with him, which first red flag for me was, I said, hey mate, look, let's jump on a call first and talk it through. Why? And he goes, you know who I am. Why do you need to have a call with me first? So that should have been the first red flag. But anyway, I jumped on the call with him. Yeah. And he found out that I was doing the summit for free. And I said, look, it's a free summit. There is an upsell in there. I mean, this is a model that does work, but I want to make sure this content is available for free for people. And he snapped at me and he's like, Vince, how many times have I told you, man? Never give it away free. Always charge, add value, charge them more, bump up it. And I said, dude, seriously, stop. I am never, ever going to agree with you. Like, never agree with you. Like, I'm about giving impact back to people and giving value back to them. And I said, and I've also realized something else. You're not right for this summit. And I pulled the pin. He wasn't too happy. We've patched things up since, but it was a decision I made where I suddenly realized halfway through that call, I'm going, what am I doing here? This is the wrong approach. I need people who I think are aligned with what I believe, and not just agree with me. I don't want people to agree with me. I want people in there that I know genuinely want to serve instead of sell. They genuinely want to impact people rather than serve their own interests,
Yeah, absolutely. I looked at doing a summit. I was actually going to do it next month, and then I realized with the podcast launching and writing my next book and all that stuff, it's just too much stuff. And being a dad and a husband, like there's just too much. And I was like, okay, I'll do it later, maybe. But start looking at people that I know in the industry in healthcare, and I'm like, okay, this one would be amazing. I know a ton of people would do this, but they don't line up with what I believe.
Yeah.
Values or whatever. It's important. I don't think you can sell yourself out to get another 100 emails or $50 or $1 million or whatever. So I love that.
People notice very quickly when something is unaligned with who you are as a brand. And I've done this with my podcast. I had a guest on there where I normally book a call beforehand, so I get to know them and just make sure there's a rapport between the two of us. But in this case, I just couldn't get the time with them. And I knew they were pretty, they had a good reputation. So I thought they had a good reputation anyway. So I was like, okay, I'll just book the call. So we booked the call. We went to record the session, and I realized there was no EQ on their end at all. There was no empathy. There was no way I could make a connection with them. They were actually quite rude and abrupt during it. I could have gone ahead and put that podcast out, but I thought, if I do this, it feels like I'm selling out, and people will go, what was that? That was so different from what we normally get on your podcast. So I actually had to be quite upfront with them and just say, look, I just don't think this is a really good fit for my audience. I don't think they're going to resonate with this at all. So sorry.
No, I get it. I interviewed somebody I guess maybe last week, and they have a podcast very successful in Australia. And I said, hey, have you ever, I actually asked them this on the podcast, have you ever not published an episode? They're like, oh, absolutely. I was like, why? Because it didn't match up with my brand. And so I immediately went to my Google Drive and deleted a podcast that I had recorded 2 weeks earlier, because after I did it, I was just like, oh my gosh. Nothing against the person, but it wasn't a normal podcast that I do. And the vibe was off. And it was just, I was like, I just don't think this is right.
Well,
So
there's something I've kind of realized that, there are people that will align with me. Right.
yeah,
And I have a certain style about me. I'm very empathetic. I hate the term because it's overused, but heart-centered. So I genuinely want to help people. But I'm not a bro marketer at all. I'm not going to go in there and go, yeah, 10x your results. Come on. I'm not going to push. I'm going to stand next to you with my arm on your shoulder going, come on, this way. And I remember speaking at a summit, and they had my session. They had another speaker there who was kind of more aligned with me. Like they were very empathetic, told really cool stories and things. And then the next marketer that got up there at the summit was your bro marketer. And he got there and he goes, look around you. Everyone else here are losers. You are a winner. And I'm like, hell. But I realized there are people that genuinely were impacted by that. There were people there that is exactly what they needed at that moment. And there were people there in my session that's what they needed at that moment. So there's different styles, but I tell you now, the bro marketer never ever going to be on my show. Like, forget about it. It's just exhausting listening to that crap.
Yeah, I know. That's funny. I tell some of my clients, they're like we're talking about, because I'm very much a relationship guy, and thankfully I had a great mentor. His name's Greg Todd in the physical therapy space, and that's how he taught us. He's like, stop DMing everybody and asking them to buy your product. Just build relationships. And so
nice.
It's like it gets old. Yeah, exactly. But then I tell my clients, I'm like, hey, I'll kick you in the butt or hold your hand, whatever you need at that particular time, but I'll be nice about it regardless of what I'm doing. And you have to be that. If I see one more value stack on something, I'm going to scream because it's not worth $59,000. Okay.
Exactly.
So I love it. Okay.
We are way too aligned.
Yeah, I know. So, all right, we're going to go off into left field. So let's talk about the book again. You wrote the book. What did you do to market the book, to launch it, all that stuff, Vince?
To market it itself, that was about building my tribe. So I did that very early. I let people know. I have a Facebook group. I would kind of put covers designs in there and see what people would like. I would talk about different themes within the book and see what resonated with them. And part of that was genuinely getting feedback from people and getting them to buy into it as well. But the other thing was, of course, they were then my tribe. They felt like this book was a part of them. They were a part of this launch. So whenever I launched, I knew they were all going to buy the book. They were going to spread the word. They were going to share it on social. So that was part of how I could spread the word a bit better. The other thing I did was I just used all my normal kind of marketing channels, but I sabotaged myself as well. And this is one of my biggest regrets of when I did publish it. So someone had said to me, don't do a book launch. Like, nobody goes to book launches anymore. And I'm like, whatever. I'm a marketer. Hold my beer. I got this. So I organized a book launch. Back in the days when we could meet face to face. So I organized this book launch. Got about 100 or so people there. It was awesome atmosphere, man. I had some of my peers in the marketing industry from Australia and New Zealand all flying everywhere to come over to this to support it. So that was really humbling. It was amazing. And I knew going into that I'm going to have to do signed copies of the book, which was something that was kind of weird. It was kind of getting my head around the fact that people would want my autograph. I'm like, I'm not an entertainer. Seriously, I'm barely an average karaoke singer. This is going to be odd, man. But I thought if I go to a book launch, that's exactly what I would want. I would want to get a signed copy because it's kind of cool. It's your way of supporting the author. And also it's a great memento for the day. So, I can rationalize this. Bought myself a new pen, like a really fancy pen. I'm like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. Signed all of the books and didn't count on one of the downsides of that, which was every time I handed them the book, they were like, oh man, this is awesome. I can't wait to read it. And the second they did that, I started getting in my own head. My stomach would not. And I'm like, oh no, that's right. People are going to read this. Oh no, I'm going to be very exposed very soon. Like, people are going to go, what the hell? You think you're an author? And that night, that's when imposter syndrome really got its claws into me. I went home, should have been energized. I'm a high extrovert, man. You get me in a room full of people, I'm buzzing for days. But I came out of there complete opposite. I was like, internal dialogue going through my head going, who do you think you are? What makes you think you can write a book? They're going to read it and think you're an amateur. No, this is crazy, Vince. So I decided that night that's it. I want to go quiet on it for a little bit. I'm not going to post anything on social. I'm not going to talk about it. And I had 3 media interviews lined up, one for Forbes, one for CIO magazine, and one for Diginomica. They wanted to do a huge spread on me and the book and my journey. And I turned them all down. I turned around and said, hey guys, look, sorry, chief marketing officer here. We're really busy. I don't have time for this, but appreciate it. Thank you very much. The reality was I could have made time. I was just petrified. I was really worried that the more I got visible, the more people would see through me essentially and see, oh, you don't know what you're doing. You're making this up as you go along, which is completely contrary to the evidences in front of me. I mean, yes, by the way, totally am making it up as I go along. That's exactly what we should be doing as entrepreneurs. Yeah. It's kind of the normal. But I had a huge amount of evidence to prove that this works. I mean, I've created and sold companies. I sold a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-figure company. I can never do the math. I can never remember how many zeros. 8-figure company, which we had built and sold within 4 years. It was crazy. And then, the results I was getting at Cigna again were staggering. And yet I was still standing there doubting myself. So it could have been a lot better than it was. But my own sabotage kicked in. And it wasn't until a mentor called me. And by the way, he's one of these mentors that you normally have to book time with. Like, he never calls you out of the blue. He's far too important for that. But he checked in on me and said, "Oh, how's the book sales going?" I told him, he's like, "Oh, see, that's not too bad." And I said, "Yeah, no, it's going well. It's going well." He goes, "But I haven't seen anything on social. I haven't seen any press or anything like that. What's going on?" I was like, "Oh, I'm just really, really busy. So I'm just relying on word of mouth." And he goes, "Yeah, I'm going to call BS on that, Vince." Yeah. And he taught me through. Now, he's a best-selling author multiple times over. And he taught me through the process he goes through every single time he launches a new book, every single time. And it was the exact same thing I just went through. And I was like, oh my goodness, except he doesn't turn down the media interviews. He just does them anyway, because he's got a press secretary there who'll go, you're doing this, you have no choice. But hearing that and understanding that somebody else has gone through it as well was quite empowering. Like, it was actually like, hey, wait a minute, I'm not on my own on this. So I knew I had to take action. So I wrote this article for LinkedIn and put it out there, just talking about what I'd just been through, talking about how imposter syndrome affects us, the self-sabotage aspect of it. And then I said, and now I'm going to take action. And I'm going to tell you, if you're a marketer or you're an entrepreneur, you just need to buy this book. It is a damn good book. I know, because I've poured my heart and soul into this. I have bled this book. Like, seriously, it is really good. And I know that these methods work because they're the exact things I do. I'm talking from experience here. And then two things happened. So I put that out there. I had a massive spike in sales. That piece of content went viral so quickly, and mainly because, as well as buying the book, everyone would also reach out to me and go, same here. Oh my goodness, man, I do this in my life all the time. And I realized how many entrepreneurs are affected by imposter syndrome, by self-sabotage, by self-doubt, by comparing themselves with others, all of the kind of normal issues that we have as entrepreneurs that riddle us, Yeah. So I wish I could have done it better, but that was my journey, man. Yeah, I'm going to do better with the next two.
I love that story, because that is such a powerful story, Vince, because for two reasons. One, because everybody goes through that, every single person. Yeah. The next person I'm going to interview tonight, his name's David Bailiff. He's a great friend of mine. He wrote a book, and the same thing. I called him. I was like, dude, you have a Facebook group with 4,000 people. Why haven't you posted your book today? I'm like, dude, post your freaking book. But like, for one, that, and then the second thing is, you just said, guys, listen to this podcast, listen to what I'm about to say, listen to what Vince just said, go back and listen to it again. He sold an 8-figure company. Like, this isn't somebody that's like just starting out. You've had success in life. You've chief marketing officer of Cigna Life Insurance. I mean, that's a huge company. Yeah. Like, it happens to everybody.
Yeah, it does. And in fact, I remember after I put out that LinkedIn article, there was one of my mentors. He was actually an investor in that 8-figure company, funny enough. But he was a senior partner at one of the big 4 firms. And I never name him just because I don't want to embarrass him. But I hadn't seen him in a while. And I ended up at this event like about 2 weeks after that. And it was a birthday party, funny enough, for an agency. And I remember standing there and he saw me and he's like, oh my God, Vince. And I was like, I haven't seen you in ages. Gave me the biggest hug, one of those proper hugs that make you feel like really awesome. And then he goes, I've been following your career, man. I am so proud of you. And I loved hearing that. That was the coolest thing ever. But then he started talking to me and he said, oh, I saw that article you put on LinkedIn. And I was like, oh, yeah. And he goes, can we have a chat about that? And I was like, oh, I was thinking, here we go. And so we went out on the balcony. I'm thinking, I know where this is heading. He's going to go, do you need help, Vince? Do I need to get you a counselor? Do you need some psychological help? Sure. Like, what's going on? But it was the exact opposite. He said to me, I just want you to know, he said, I read that when no one else was in the office, and I was really glad because that really impacted me. He said, I've been a senior partner forever at this firm, and I've always felt like I'm a fraud. I've never felt like I fit in. I've always felt like the dumbest guy in the room. I'm always worried that everyone's going to realize I have no idea what I'm doing. Now, context for that, not only is a senior partner in the Big 4 firm, he is known as pretty much Mr. Startup in our area, like in Australasia, pretty much. Like he's known as the guy that helps startups get to success. He's got a string of evidence behind him, and he still thinks he's making it up as he goes along. So it does affect everybody. It's merciless, man. It's ruthless.
It really is. It's a shame that it does affect us all, but like I mean, we struggle with it, and I know you still struggle with it from time to time, and we all do. We're going to love it, man. Vince, this has been so amazing. I want to start with this or end with this last thing. If somebody's looking to write a book or market or whatever, what are your top 3 to 5 tips of, hey, do this and it's going to help?
Okay. First of all, you're going to hear a lot of advice from people around how to structure your book, and you're going to hear a lot of advice about the writing process and, write a first draft and don't edit it. None of those rules work. I mean, they do work for some people, but they don't necessarily work for you. There are actually no rules. It's your damn book. You write it the hell the way you want. Like, seriously, I was really caught up in this when I first wrote the book because I wrote the first chapter. I was so happy with the first chapter. It's got a good amount of humor and my stupid jokes and my really tacky humor, but also some really solid stuff in there as well, and a mixture of research as well as experience and stories. So I thought this balance feels right. Now, I didn't edit it, just like they told me. Just write the draft and then go into chapter 2. So I get into chapter 2 and I finished chapter 2 and thought, this doesn't feel right. So I reread the 2 chapters and realized they were in completely different voices. And what I mean is the first one, I was in a really good mood, I guess. I was in a good mood. The humor was there and everything. The second one, I was actually really busy with work. I was not feeling it. So it became very kind of dry, and it was more data driven. It was more the science behind it. It was more those kind of things. And I realized if I'm going to write a book, it's going to feel like every chapter is by a different author. I mean, one for each of my personalities. So I thought, right, I'm going to have to write a chapter. And then before I write the next one, I'm going to have to reread that chapter and then write it, and then reread that chapter and write it. So that way I'm always, no matter when I'm writing, I'm always in the same headspace. But then I also discovered as I do that, I wasn't happy with a part of it and thought, it's so much easier to rewrite it now. So there's one chapter I wrote like 8 times before I'd even finished the book. And yet I finished the book and I'm really happy with the book. And I've got a friend of mine who, we talk about how to structure books. And they're like, you should have an end goal, and you should think about what you want people to walk away from and what you want them to know or think or feel when they finish the book. And she's like, nah, screw that. She just got a whiteboard and I think she drew like 13 or 14 pictures on the board, and they were her chapters. And each of those were just different things that had happened in her life. And so none of the chapters actually aligned with each other. They were all so random. And then at the end, and when she told me this, I got anxiety, man. I was like, what are you doing? She literally printed them all out, put them on the table, all the different chapters, and then went, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, what order should I put them in? And you know what? Best-selling book. Like, she amazing. Crushed it, man. This book is phenomenal, and it's helped so many different people. So there are no rules, essentially, is what I'm saying. So just write what makes you feel comfortable, work in a pattern that makes you feel comfortable. But the other key I will give you is just write every single day. It doesn't even matter if it's for your book, or it's just your journaling, or it's just writing your crappy thoughts down or your good thoughts down or whatever. It's just getting in the process of writing is going to help your flow, and you'll be surprised. Like, honestly, this woman particularly, I wrote every day. I tried to write for at least 20 minutes. I tried to write up to an hour, but at least 20 minutes per day. She wrote 8 minutes per day and still finished her book. So there, you see what I mean? It's just about consistency and consistently turning up and writing. And then, we wanted 3, didn't we? Man, sure, I'm on a roll now. The third thing is you need to build your tribe before you finish your book. Like, actually just get people on board, involve them in the process. I know it's scary because it may not go the way that you want. Like, if you put 3 cover designs out there and you have your favorite, they may not pick your favorite, but guess what? You're not your audience. They are.
That's right.
So get them involved with it, get their buy-in. In fact, I can tell you now, oh man, I've gone completely blank on his name. He wrote the book called, hang on, I'm going to turn around and have a look for a moment. And it's not there. Wow, I just loaned it to someone. Anyway, he was a Jonah Berger. That's it, Jonah Berger. So he had his new book coming out. Now, I'm a huge fan of his. He wrote the book called Contagious. It's one of those must-read for marketers. It's a brilliant, brilliant book. It's a really good combination of case studies and data and things. It's for science nerds like me. It's brilliant. But anyway, he had his new book coming out, and he did this exact thing as well. And in there, and I found this. I know these techniques. I teach these techniques, man. And I'm in his Facebook group, and he posts this thing there saying, hey, what font should I use on my cover and all this kind of thing. and I voted for the font, and he chose the font that I chose as well. And I'm like, yeah. And then the thing is, I was immediately looking at where to pre-order his book. I didn't even know what the book was about. I didn't care. I felt like that book was for me because I was part of the journey. So build that tribe as early as possible. That will give you the biggest impact when you launch. Because when you launch, you want it to be fireworks, spectacular. You want it to be this big bang, because that'll get you the bestseller status. That'll get you recognized, and that'll keep the momentum going. But to do that, you need to be working long before you've even finished the book. In fact, in some cases, even as you're writing the book, get people to help you to co-create it.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the most valuable things anybody said is start building your tribe early, because if you write a book and there's no one to sell it to, or then it doesn't matter,
Exactly. You'll be the best unknown author ever.
Yeah, I mean, and Vince, just think about how many people there are out there that have written books as just as good as yours and things like that, and better, and that nobody knows about because they don't.
I am sure that there is the book that is going to change my life out there. I just haven't found it. It's probably sitting on a shelf somewhere. No one's bothered marketing it.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Vince, thank you so much for being honest and empathetic and just amazing. I've really enjoyed this interview. Tell us again where we can go find you and learn more about you.
Sure, mate. ChasingTheInsights.com, nice and easy. ChasingTheInsights.com. It's my podcast. It's my book. It's my social media profiles. Do connect with me. I am a high extrovert. I am very social. I will talk to you. I'm warning you now. I probably won't shut up. But also, it's where you can book a free strategy call with me. And this is where I will deep dive in any area of marketing that you are struggling with, or anywhere you need clarity, or you need some vision on it. Anything where you need some advice. I do free strategy calls to help you get that clarity. So ChasingTheInsights.com, super easy, man.
Vince, this has been one of my absolute favorite interviews ever. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. Please rate, review, and subscribe. For more inspiring conversations like this one, I invite you to join my free Facebook group, Book Boss Tribe. If you're ready to write your book, I want to invite you to book a free call with me or sign up for my free course. You can get both of those at Linktree/bookboss.